train slows as it pulls into the Porte d'Oreille station in Paris. It's June 1937, a warm Sunday evening. Passengers wait to board, but when the door opens, they freeze. Inside, a young woman sits motionless, elegant, poised, yet unmistakably lifeless. No one saw anyone enter her carriage. No one saw anyone leave. And yet, in the span of just 3 minutes between stations, she was killed. Her name was Laetitia Toureaux, and her death would become one of France's strangest unsolved murders, a mystery that still haunts Paris nearly a century later. Don't miss out on the next chilling mystery. Hit subscribe and tap the bell icon so you're the first to know when new stories drop. Before the headlines called her the woman on the train, Laetitia Toureaux was known by another name, one few ever heard her speak aloud. She was 29, sharp, beautiful, and fiercely independent. A rare woman in 1930s Paris who lived entirely on her own terms. By day, she worked at a letter-sorting factory. By night, she transformed, slipping into silk gowns to attend exclusive dance halls and shadowy cabarets across the city. She was charming but distant, the kind of woman who smiled easily yet kept her secrets close. But to the people who knew her better, or thought they did, Laetitia lived 2 lives. Police would later learn she held a position at a private detective agency, and not just as a secretary. She was skilled, observant, and often sent to spy on unfaithful lovers or dishonest employees. But the deeper they dug, the stranger her world became. In her diary, investigators found references to missions, rendezvous, and names tied to the dark edges of political France, whispers of espionage, underground movements, and betrayal. On the evening of June 16, 1937, Laetitia attended a small gathering, leaving just before 6:55 p.m. Witnesses recalled her stepping into a taxi, wearing a light green dress and matching hat, clutching a small purse. Her demeanor? Calm, composed, as if she were heading to a secret appointment. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. When police arrived at the Porte d'Oreille station that night, the scene was like something out of a detective novel. The carriage was spotless. No struggle, no sign of panic, and almost no blood. Laetitia sat upright, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Only a single wound to her chest told the story, a swift, deliberate strike from a short blade. Whoever had done it knew exactly what they were doing. The strangest part? Every passenger from the previous stop swore they hadn't seen anyone enter or leave her compartment. The murder had occurred in the brief 3-minute journey between stations, in a sealed carriage. Detectives scoured the train and platform. There were no fingerprints, no weapon, no witnesses. Even stranger, her purse and jewelry remained untouched. This wasn't a robbery. It was personal. Investigators turned to her double life, the one hidden behind the charm and elegance. At the detective agency, they discovered her last assignment, a surveillance job on a man with ties to a secret political organization. That lead took them into the underbelly of Paris. Smoky bars, shadowed backrooms, whispered names. The further they followed, the more her world seemed to blur between spycraft and seduction. One colleague described her as too brave for her own good. Another hinted she'd been followed in the weeks before her death. Letters intercepted by police revealed code names, warnings, and references to the meeting, scheduled for the very night she died. But just as investigators thought they were closing in, the leads twisted into something darker. Laetitia, it seemed, might not have been just an informant. She might have been an agent herself. The police began to suspect the Cagoule, a violent far-right secret society accused of assassinations and sabotage. Yet every time they got close, witnesses recanted, files went missing, and higher officials urged them to let the matter rest. The press fed the frenzy, dubbing it the murder in the locked train. For weeks, the people of Paris whispered theories: a jealous lover, an espionage killing, or something even more sinister, an inside job. In the end, the investigation would yield dozens of theories and not one solid suspect. The murder weapon was never found. The carriage was eventually scrubbed clean, returned to service, and passengers once again sat where Laetitia had drawn her final breath. But the detectives who worked the case never forgot that haunting question. How can someone vanish from a sealed train, leaving behind only silence and mystery? Months after the murder, the trail had gone cold until a tip surfaced from deep within Paris's political underground. A former informant claimed Laetitia Toureaux wasn't just a bystander in espionage. She was an active spy. Not for one side, but for two. According to the report, Laetitia had infiltrated the Cagoule, posing as an ally while secretly gathering intelligence for a rival faction. She attended clandestine meetings, passed coded messages, and may have even fallen for one of the very men she was sent to expose. Her death, then, wasn't random. It was retribution. Detectives revisited her diary, uncovering a final, unfinished note. "Meeting confirmed. He said it will be the last time." That line, brief, haunting, became the hinge on which the entire case turned. They traced the note to a cafe near the metro line. Witnesses recalled seeing Laetitia speaking to a man in a dark coat. He left moments before she boarded the train. His description matched one of the Cagoule's known operatives. But before police could act, that man disappeared, his apartment empty, his name erased from records. Years later, a former member of the Cagoule confessed that Laetitia had indeed been marked for death, her murder carried out by professionals trained to strike fast, unseen, and vanish without a trace. The method, the precision of the wound, suddenly made sense. Yet the confession was never corroborated. The names, locations, and evidence were conveniently lost to time. The truth dissolved into rumor, politics, and fear, buried under decades of silence. Laetitia's final act had been one of loyalty or betrayal. No one could say for sure. But the one thing everyone agreed on: she knew something she was never meant to know. When news of Laetitia Toureaux's secret life broke, Paris was thrown into chaos. The elegant young woman, once mourned as a victim, was suddenly recast as something else entirely: a spy, a deceiver, a pawn in a game no one fully understood. Headlines screamed betrayal. Radio hosts debated whether she had died for her country or been silenced for crossing the wrong people. Crowds gathered outside police headquarters, demanding answers that never came. And behind closed doors, detectives who had spent months chasing shadows began to realize the truth might never be allowed to surface. The case was quietly sealed. Files vanished from archives. Those connected to her investigations either fled, resigned, or simply disappeared. The few who spoke about her in whispers described her as the woman who knew too much. Her family, devastated and humiliated, withdrew from public life. They were left with two unbearable versions of her: the daughter who was murdered and the stranger she might have been. At her funeral, only a handful of people attended. A cold drizzle fell as the coffin was lowered, the Paris skyline shrouded in gray. A single detective stood at a distance, his hat low, knowing he was burying more than a woman. He was burying a mystery the city was too afraid to solve. And as the rain fell harder, washing away the last traces of her story, Paris carried on, trains running, newspapers printed, while the truth of Laetitia Toureaux's death slipped quietly beneath history's surface. Nearly 90 years have passed since the night Laetitia Toureaux's body was found in that Paris train, yet her story refuses to fade. The original investigators are long gone, their files scattered across archives and private collections. Some of their descendants still speak of the case in hushed tones, of missing evidence, anonymous phone calls, and strange men who once watched their homes from parked cars. No one was ever arrested, no confession ever confirmed. But from time to time, new whispers surface. An old photo discovered in a police storage room, a letter addressed to a detective who died before reading it. Each clue stirs the same question. Was her death a crime of passion or a silencing orchestrated by the powerful? Today, the train line still runs through the same tunnels. Tourists ride it without knowing the history that lies in the shadows between stations. The carriage itself was scrapped decades ago, but railway workers claim strange things. Footsteps in empty cars, soft perfume in the air when the line slows near Porte Dorée. At the cemetery where Laetitia rests, her grave sits slightly apart from the others, simple, unmarked except for her initials. Locals leave flowers there every June 16th, though no one can ever say who started the tradition. Time has blurred her name into myth. But to those who study her story, historians, journalists, armchair detectives, Laetitia Toureaux remains a haunting symbol of truth, buried beneath politics and silence. And in the city she once called home, every passing train still seems to carry her secret, just out of reach, hidden forever between one station and the next. In the end, the murder of Laetitia Toureaux became more than just an unsolved crime. It became a mirror held up to a nation, a reflection of secrecy, betrayal, and fear that ran deeper than any one person. For decades, people have tried to solve it. Detectives, journalists, even amateur sleuths across the world, each believing they'd found the missing link. But the truth always slips through, like smoke in the Paris night. Some say she was a spy caught in the crossfire of political intrigue. Others whisper that she was silenced by those she trusted most. Theories pile up, yet evidence remains elusive. And perhaps that's the cruelest part, not the act itself, but the silence that followed. Every unanswered question, every vanished file, every frightened witness adds another layer to her ghostly legacy. The truth is out there, somewhere, but maybe it was never meant to be found. Laetitia's story endures because it forces us to look closer at what lies beneath power, beneath desire, beneath the masks people wear. It reminds us that behind every unsolved case is not just a mystery, but a person who once lived, laughed, and dreamed. So the next time you ride the Paris metro and the train slows in the dark between stations, listen closely. You might just hear a whisper from the past, asking the same question that still haunts investigators to this day. Was Laetitia Toureaux's death a crime of love or a crime of silence? With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.